Hey everyone, I'm Pickle here at Pickle's Pub Podcast, and we're filming another episode here today with my friend Aaron Harwood. He's been a big part of my life for a long time, and we're going to talk about the homelessness issue and the organization he works for. That's through Youth for Christ and Youth Unlimited. And yeah, we're going to see where the conversation takes us, raise some awareness for homeless youth, and see what we can't accomplish through this conversation. So without further ado, Aaron, thank you very much for being here, man.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's honestly, let's talk, we'll give you the floor and get you to talk a little bit about Youth for Christ, Youth Unlimited, and the great things you're doing over at 37 Frank Street.
Sure. So Youth Unlimited, YFC, it's the same organization. I know it confuses a lot of people. There's just some areas, as soon as you hear the word Christ, some people are just like, whoa. Yeah. So we came out with Youth Unlimited as well, but it's basically the same organization. YFC Canada is a nationwide organization. Of course, it's in the States. It's worldwide as well. Nice. Youth for Christ. So yeah, it's a huge organization, and basically, there's really no limits as to what happens within Youth for Christ. It's all about youth ministry, and that can look different depending on the area. Yeah. We had a Youth for Christ in Strathroy in the late 90s, 2000s. Yeah. This is where I met this villain. No, you were an awesome youth. So the youth at that time were really cool. You guys weren't necessarily dealing with issues like everybody else, but not major issues. You just guys needed a place to hang out. And I got to know a lot of you, and just because I was in my 20s, I was more like a big brother than anything. Yes. And we became friends, not just...
Yeah, that just happened organically.
It did, because we weren't that different in age, and like I said, I was more like a big brother to you guys, and it's funny because some of the things that we did, we can't do now just because of all the restrictions. Unfortunately, that's the way the world is now. We got to be careful, and so it's so hard to do youth ministry anymore. We used to just throw a bunch of guys in the car, and we'd hit to London to watch a movie, and we can't do that anymore. We got all the paperwork, and that's just the organization keeping us safe, and I understand that. But I look back on those times, and it's like, yeah, those were awesome times when you can just throw a bunch of guys in the back of the car, and just go do stuff.
I mean, it's unfortunate that I really wasn't able to join along for a lot of those, like, hop in the car things. I was out in the suburbs of London, and my parents didn't want to drive me to Strathroy and stuff. So, I mean, yeah, it honestly, you impacted my life so much more for the positive than I ever thought you would. I mean, heck, you were always there to listen. Even when I started out, like, with drugs and homelessness and stuff, and couch hopping, like, you were there, no judgment. You weren't like one of these people that, like, oh, this is what you got to do. You got to do this, and this. You were just an ear to listen, and that was a huge impact for me. And I can only imagine, how the youth that you're working with these days are dealing with that. I mean, you're one of the most genuinely caring people. And I think it's perfect for you, honestly, to be in the ministry that you're in and doing the work that you're doing. So, I mean, from there, I think, let's talk a little bit about, like, what you guys over at 37 Frank are doing, like, in terms of just giving people a place to stay warm, place to talk, and what things 37 Frank is looking to do as things go forward. Yep. I mean, especially with coldest night of the year coming about really, really quickly. So go ahead. Yeah, so
when the Upper Deck ministry ended, shortly after, they hired a man by the name of Dave Rodan. He's actually from Strathroy, but he had moved up to Midland. But then all of a sudden, God was calling him back to his hometown, which I think was the last thing that he wanted. But that's where he ended up. And I was a youth leader at a local church, and so he wanted to meet all the youth leaders. And so we went out for lunch, and I'm like, this is the guy. This is the guy that I know is his heart is right for youth ministry. We both were excited about the upcoming Marvel movie coming into the theater, but we also had a similar vision as to what we wanted to see for the youth. We saw that there was homelessness, so we saw there was alcohol and drug abuse, so we saw that there was even some human trafficking happening, and then yet if you went to town hall, they'd be like, oh no, there's none of that in Strathroy, because they just didn't see it, right? It was very well hidden.
Oh yeah, I mean that's it's a sad reality when cities, when townships, when any municipality is not even looking at the issues, they're just trying to sweep it under the rug, like, not here, that's not us, we're so clean. But I mean,
the nickname for Strathroy is Strath Vegas, and if you look at Las Vegas, it's this showy, glitzy town, but underneath there's this underbed of sex and gambling and drugs and all that stuff. Well, same with Strathroy. We look like this beautiful bedroom community between London and Sarnia, and yet underneath there's a lot of issues, and those issues weren't very visible at the time, but I was seeing them, Dave was seeing them, and so I started volunteering with Youth for Christ again, and then I was I had lost my job. It was Rogers. I was a TV producer. They did some corporate restructuring in 2017, and it kind of felt me left really lost. Like, if I didn't have the support of my family, I probably would have ended up homeless, because I couldn't even think. There was times where I didn't even know what to do next. And then I remember going away for a weekend, and then when I came back, cleared my head. I'm like, okay, I can do this, or this. And then I was able to kind of move forward, but I needed that month. It's just to kind of process everything. And if I had a family to support or whatever like that, I don't know what I would have done. But thankfully I had a support system of my own to keep me going. And anyways, one of the things that I did was a youth ministry course, and about 5 minutes into the course, I'm like, yep, this is what God wants me to do. I always did it as a volunteer, but now I knew this is where He was calling me to do for a job. And I thought I was going to be in a church, nice office, paycheck every week, kind of thing, and that wasn't happening. And so I'm like, what's going on, God? So then all of a sudden, Dave Bourdain took me out for breakfast one morning. He's like, I want you to work with me. The thing with Youth for Christ missionaries is we got to raise our own salary.
Oh, wow.
And I never want to do that, because, that's just crazy, right?
Yeah. And you're really not that kind of guy to go out and ask people, like, hey, give me money. You're really not. You're the guy who's more like, hey, I'm going to give you money.
Right. Yeah, and it's hard, because when people say you could give to a missionary or you could give to the cause, they want to give to the cause, because they just assume we're getting paid, but we don't. If money's not there, then then we can't do our job.
Well, that's the thing. Like, without the missionaries, there is no cause, really.
Right.
And if you're not supporting the missionary, then what's the point in trying to support it at all?
Right. But anyways, God's telling me to do it, so here I am trying to raise my initial deputation, and of course COVID hits.
Yeah.
How fun is that? When they say the best way to raise your money is to go out for coffee with people, and then now you can't. Yeah. And so even calling them on the phone or email wasn't the same, right? But I was somehow able to raise my deputation, and started in June of 2020. And around that time, we had been given a building that we called the 37 Frank U Center. It's just the address. Which at first I was like, no, you gotta have something inspirational. Like here in London, there's the Arcade, and I'm like, Noah rescued people and animals from the flood. Now they're rescuing people off the streets. I love that metaphor. So I came up with the bridge, but people kept saying, "What bridge?" I'm like, no, bridging the gap. There's so many metaphors of that. And I found out later there actually is a youth center called The Bridge. So there's at least somebody that thinks like me. But nobody got it. And so Dave goes, let's just call it the 37 Frank Easter. I said, that's boring. But he goes, no, you can play on the name Frank, like frankly speaking, and or being frank with people. And so we created this whole character named Frank. Everyone thought Dave was Frank at first. I'm like, no. So our name tags actually say, hello, my name is Frank, but you can call me Aaron, awesome. Dave, yeah. So we play on the Frank name, and we call it Frank's, and the kids love it. But so that was sort of the beginning of the journey. Of course, COVID was still around, so we opened up during the pandemic in October of 2020. And so we weren't getting many kids coming because, one, they didn't know about us, and two, restrictions were still in place. But we were getting like the odd person coming in. Our first client was actually somebody who had moved out, bad home life, had gotten a job, or was about to start a job, but needed a haircut, some new work clothes, and then some food and toiletries to get him going until his first paycheck. And so we gave him that. And then we didn't see him for like 6 months. We're like, oh. But he came back. He said, no, I've been working like nonstop. And then now, that's awesome. He's got a girlfriend. And I don't even think he's in Strathroy now. He moved out. And he's doing really well. And so I just think, man, he just needed that little little boost at the beginning. And so we were able to give him that. There was a girl who lost everything in a fire. And the next day she comes and she still had like burn marks on her fingers. But she was in shock. So she didn't. She's like, oh no, I'm fine, and she had ash on her clothes, and she didn't even, she goes, oh, I wish I had died in that fire because I'm not worth saving. And we're like, no. So we did everything we could to give her some food, and then we connected her with another agency that got her a place to stay, and those are our beginning stories that were kind of get us going and stuff. And then when restrictions lifted in March of 22, it was also spring break, March break, and then just all the work that we had done to get our word out there, just like this perfect storm, a good storm. All at once, and all of a sudden we were getting like 20, 30 kids coming in.
Oh, wow.
And by the summer it was like 50, almost to 100 kids a day. It was absolutely amazing. So what we do is you come in to Frank's, and it looks very much like a cafe.
Yeah.
And so you sit down at a table. There's games you can play, board games and stuff, or you can just order your food. And then a lot of the food is free. We get donated from Little Caesars. They have to have so many pizzas ready for their hot and readies. If they don't sell, they usually just throw them out. Yeah. But thankfully, this owner said, no, we'll freeze them if you pick them up.
That's awesome.
Then you can have them. Churches donate food. Church lady food is the best. I don't know what it is.
Yes, it is.
I'm not sure the ingredients.
Especially the Dutch church ladies.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but the food tastes amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and then, of course, we sometimes have to buy some food ourselves. But, so basically, some things we charge just because it costs us money. But for the most part, you can come and get a free meal. And so if you're homeless, it doesn't stand out. We don't say, oh, you sit over there. You come in with a friend, and a friend's ordering a burger because they're a teenager and they're hungry. But for you, that could be a meal, and you don't know the difference, right? And then we also have showers and laundry if needed. And then we decided not to reinvent the wheel or try to compete with all the other agencies. Instead, we partner with them. So we say, hey, if you have a mental health issue, we can connect you to this agency. If you need a job, we can connect you here. If you need help, we'll connect you here. And so that's basically what we are. And so we're basically trying to create this community where we're not labeling anybody. We're not saying you're homeless, you're gay, you're bisexual, you're transgender. It's all are welcome.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah. And so we don't need a flag in our window. We just know that everyone is welcome to come in. And so it took a while, but some kids got it right away. They realized, okay, these guys are different. They don't want anything from us.
Yeah, it's not a publicity stunt trying to make you look good, right?
They're different, and then you have the ones like I call them sort of like the wild dogs, where they come in, they sniff, they see that there's something good, but they don't really appreciate it. They just take and go, but then even them start realizing, hey, these guys are here and to help us and stuff.
That's awesome.
And through that, we're starting to build community. We're starting small groups. We're starting to invest into their lives, and it's been amazing.
That's awesome. Honestly, I wish the Upper Deck could have done a bit more of that, like back when we first met and whatnot. That's a really cool. I think we need a heck of a lot more than that.
Well, it's funny because Dave kept, when he even asked me to be an employee, I'm like, well, no, there's always one employee at the Upper Deck, and so I never quite got it. But no, Dave expanded, so we're actually at 5 staff now.
Oh, wow.
We've gone from 2 staff to 5 in like 3 years. It's crazy. The Upper Deck was awesome for its day, but you're right. It always stayed the Upper Deck.
Yeah, it was a Friday, Saturday night deal, and that was we
did camp trips and we did stuff like that, but I mean, it never expanded as far as getting into the community, and that's where I think. It lacked and unfortunately eventually failed, is that there were people who knew me as a volunteer, but they didn't know who the director was.
Oh, shoot.
There was times where, there was different directors during that time. 3 or 4 of them, some of them, Belinda and Patty. So, during that, during that time, there was a lot of changeover where I was more of a consistent person, so even with this, I'm always surprised when Dave keeps saying I want to hire another person, because of his vision. And part of that vision is getting either a warming center or a crash bed situation, because there's nothing in Strathroy.
No, there's not.
If you're a female, there is
there's the women's shelter.
But it's always full up. But there's nothing if you're a male.
No, I know that from firsthand experience too. I mean, like, the homelessness issue in Strathroy, I mean, it's so hidden from view. Like, you don't see it too much.
Well, and part of the reason is, define homelessness for me. It's not just that...
it's not just like I'm out on the street in the cold.
There's going to be the guy who couch hops.
Or the guy who, like, every once in a while, he, like me, for example, like, I would just talk to my friends, like, hey, I need a place to stay, for a couple weeks.
So even if you can find a place to stay, you don't actually have a shelter of your own that you can say, I can go home every night and this is mine. You're
even living in your van is homelessness.
Oh, of course.
It's not a home. You're living in a vehicle.
And so just even defining what homelessness is, it's hard because, like I said, the view of a lot of people in Strathroy was, well, there is no homeless problem, because, like you said, it was hidden.
Well, I know how long it's been going on, because, I mean, heck, I know for myself, that's about 20 years ago now.
Right.
That I first became homeless in Strathroy. Right? Like, it's kind of ridiculous that they're still denying that it's a significant issue.
I don't think they're denying it now. I think they're just... They just now are trying to figure out, okay, what can we do? What's that next step? There are some who say, the situation is stable. I don't know what stable means. If I'm in a coma, that means I'm not getting any better, but I'm not getting any worse. But I think the homeless situation is getting worse. They say, well, we're not as bad as London. Well, why are we comparing ourselves to London? Or they're saying we can't just throw money at one emotional story. Well, I'm saying you can, because one kid is too many.
Oh, heck yeah.
It's not like cancer where it was like, okay, is this becoming or even COVID, right? At first we were like, okay, how bad is this problem? This isn't a disease. This is something we can control. Homelessness. And so if there's even one kid on the street, that's one too many.
Well, yeah. And
we need to come up with something for that one kid.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing I've noticed is there's way too much focus on homeless adults, and there's not too much. I shouldn't say that. There is a lot of focus on, like, most of it is on adults that are homeless, but there's virtually nothing for homeless youth. I mean, even at the Sally Ann, you still got to be a certain age and stuff like that, because it's all adults, it's all communal living and stuff like that. Like, Sally Ann is the Salvation Army, for anybody who's wondering. We have our own vernacular for certain things, but I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's so prevalent. I mean, I most of the friends I had when I was in Strathroy were homeless, just like me, right? Like, we all crashed. We had one house, the house on Canaan.
Yep.
13 of us crammed into a bedroom, not much bigger than my living room. And it's crazy to think how many homeless youth there are. And it's a completely hidden demographic for the most part. Like, you see a couple here and there, like you especially with 37 Frank, you see the full force of it in Strathroy. And I mean, from my own personal experience being homeless, Strathroy and London, Strathroy cannot exclude themselves from London because of the proximity, and because there's so many people that are transient between the two cities. I mean, Strathroy is relatively small, but it does have the big city problems. And it's just as bad because of its location, right off of a highway.
So are you aware of the 401 corridor? I don't know if people have heard about this, but it's not just to do with drugs and sex trafficking. Basically, even like McDonald's or Walmart, every time there's a city right off the highway, you're gonna see a movie theater, you're gonna see a McDonald's, because that's the 401 corridor, right? And so with drug traffickers and stuff, they want the opposite. They want to get off, or get out of the small town and get quickly on the highway. They don't want to be driving 30 minutes where the cops can catch up to them or whatever. They want to hit that 401. And so Strathroy doesn't have a movie theater. We don't have all that stuff, but we are fairly close to the 402 and then the 401. And so that's why there is a lot of drug trafficking, a lot of sex trafficking, because of that 401 corridor. If you just type in 401 corridor, you can find out the whole history of how businesses use that, and unfortunately drug and sex traffickers use any city, any town, just right off the 401.
Oh yeah, it doesn't help 402. It doesn't help that we're right in between, like the Detroit and the Buffalo border. Yeah, like we're at a very unique little area here for anybody that isn't really familiar with the Ontario region. And it's, a lot of people think, oh, it's Canada, it's sweet, it's nice, maple syrup and coffee, and snow. But I mean, there is so much that people don't see about, like, our little area, south of Toronto, southwest of Toronto. There's a lot of issues, and we don't get the publicity, we don't get the news coverage, we barely even get, like, the newspaper covering this kinds of stuff, and it's terrible. Like,
and that's where, like 37 Frank, we're not just the youth center, we're changing the culture.
Absolutely.
Strathroy, we did this exercise one time where you're supposed to draw yourself as if you were a ship. And Dave drew himself as one of those icebreaker ships in the north. I go, that is perfect for you, because you're breaking a lot of ice in Strathroy and breaking through a lot of ground. And so we're starting to change the culture as to, we're not this beautiful little town, that we have our issues. One of the things we're doing, our big fundraiser every year is Coldest Night of the Year. It's actually connected to Blue Sea, which is another foundation. They do all the work for us, the website,
that's awesome,
promotion and stuff, and then we get we come along, and so people sign up for teams, so you can start a team, join a team, or donate to a team. You go to cnoy.org/Strathroy and you get all the details there. But what we're doing on February 7th to get some awareness for Coldest Night is there's a couple of volunteers and staff that are going to be staying outside, just outside the center for an entire night. And we've challenged the media, local media. We've challenged some politicians to town hall to join us. And we know the mayor's going to be there. We do know there is going to be some media there. And it's this whole thing about, getting into their shoes. You and I could just have a conversation, but as soon as I start, revealing stuff about, my personal life, taking away the mask, and then you're going to get to know me more. You're going to understand me more. And that's what we're trying to do with the homeless situation is, we know that living on your own is probably not good, but actually trying to stay a night outside in the cold.
Yeah, no, that's quite the even one night.
Well, and even that
in February in Canada, that's a task.
But even that, in your brain, okay, this is going to be hard, but in the morning I can go home, get in the bath. With the homeless situation, that's the reality every night.
Yep.
I actually can't do this challenge. My own health isn't always the best. I've got issues with my lungs, my kidney. So sleeping out in cold would just not be a good idea. But I do support those that want to do this. I think it's a great way to get the awareness out that there is an issue.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm always talking about the homelessness issue, and most people tell me to shut up about it, actually, which is kind of sad because it really goes to show the heartlessness of some people. They don't want to be confronted.
Yeah, I think it's more the uncomfortability of thinking that there actually is a homeless situation out there. They'll justify it by saying, "Oh, it's mental health," or they got themselves there.
I hated that one. Always.
Yeah, so there's a lot of excuses, but that's why we're saying, okay, no matter how they got there, you try living that reality, and you find out it's not easy.
But I want to touch on that for a second. With the stigma people put towards the reasons for homelessness. I was homeless 9 total years, and up until probably the last 9 months, 1 year, I didn't do drugs. I smoked some weed every once in a while. I drank every once in a while. If I had couple extra bucks from my social assistance, which is pathetic, but that's another topic. There are so many reasons for being homeless, running away from a bad home situation and just trying to escape that, or you lose your job and then you can't pay your rent.
We have people who are fully employed
and they're homeless,
but they still can't afford, because the whole homing situation in Strathroy, housing situation in Strathroy is ridiculous.
Yeah, I've been seeing 1-bedroom apartments going for $1,600.
Yeah.
I was lucky to even get this place before COVID, right? I'm still paying $1,400.
Yeah, so it goes deeper than just homelessness. It's finding affordable housing.
Yeah, the food prices are increasing, gas, everything.
It is. And so just to have one, like I said, I wouldn't be able to live on my own, or if I did, I wouldn't be able to have the luxuries I have.
Yeah.
I still live at home, and it's changing. Before it was my parents taking care of me. Now, as they're getting older, I'm taking care of them. But that's the situation I found myself in, and yet I know the world kind of looks down on that, but I don't, because I'm like, man, where would I be if I was by myself, right?
Well, heck, right. My parents are the only reason I've been able to keep this place for 5 years.
Right.
I have been off of the streets, out of homelessness for 5 years. And it's a struggle. People don't seem to understand that anybody could be homeless.
Yeah.
There's not a look to homeless. You don't, immediately recognize it the majority of the time.
It's not just mental health. It's not just drugs. It's not just people who say, I want to live out in the forest.
No. These days, anybody could just end up homeless for one reason or another. Hey, I missed this bill. Hey, I lost my job. Hey, my rent increased to a point I can't afford.
Don't get me wrong. I hate COVID. COVID was not a good thing. But if there was some good things that came from it, is that it finally exposed the issues that exist, because people are saying, stay in your home. Well, if I don't have a home?
Yeah.
You know, and so if COVID did anything good, which I don't know if you call it good, but it is exposing a lot of the issues. And like you said, it made a lot of people homeless. There's people who had good jobs, and then all of a sudden, stay at home.
Yeah.
I can't work, so they went on CERB or some other COVID relief, and now they're trying to get a job again, and they can't.
Yeah, oh, I know.
There's so many people that can't get a job right now, and they're saying, well, everybody's hiring. So here's another whole situation, because I've actually talked to the employment place about this. So you have all these jobs, you have all these people looking for jobs. Where's the disconnect? And she was saying that the disconnect is that these managers, they'll hire someone, but then the person will quit in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to just keep hiring people and have to constantly train them.
Temp agencies.
And so because of that, they're overworked, they're overtired, but they're not hiring anyone because they just don't want to go through the hassle of having to rehire again in a couple of weeks. Yeah. And so there's a real issue out there where there's people needing jobs, and there's all these jobs out there, and yet...
Well, yeah, and I mean, especially when you're homeless, too, like, a lot of employers won't even give you the time of the day because you don't have an address.
Well, yeah, but how are you supposed to dress up?
Well, exactly. You can't even do your laundry. You're going to come in, you're going to smell like a bag of smashed ass.
And we have times where people will say, can I come in for a shower? And we're like, okay, come in at like 10:30. Yeah. And 10:30 comes and goes, and they don't go because they don't have a watch.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Or they just get busy with something else and they forget. And so, how do they get out of that pit? Yeah. Once they're in it, and it's hard because, like you said, how do you get dressed? Find the right clothes.
And even when you're not, even if you do get out of homelessness, there's a whole slew of other problems that come with, relearning how to live in your own home again, how to clean your house again, how to do your laundry regularly, make sure that you're brushing your teeth and taking care of your hygiene. It's an immense problem all around. We
had a 16-year-old that was homeless, and he was living out in the woods. And we finally got him a motel room. The motel in Strathroy, through the Ontario government, will give funds so they can stay in a hotel room. Even he was like, you know what? I'd rather be back out in the woods. I don't like this. I don't like the hotel. I don't like some people around there. I'd rather be back. So, you're right. It's hard to readjust once even if the situation's horrible, sometimes you stay with the devil you know rather than the devil you don't know, right? Yep. And it's not an easy problem. It's not an easy fix. No. Even though that we're starting to get the support of the town hall and the mayor and the deputy mayor and some councillors, we're getting there. It's not going to be an easy problem to fix by any means. That's why we need these things in place, like a crash bed shelter. Yes. It's not a permanent solution, but it's a solution to keep them out of negative.
Well, look at last night. We had negative 17.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's Celsius for the Americans watching. not negative 17 Fahrenheit. That's immediate death going outside.
Yeah, it's crazy. I did a video to promote Coldest night. I
saw that. Yeah.
And I was just standing on the street corner for about 4 minutes for the video.
It's cold.
And I was freezing. When I first started, it was like -4 weather, and it wasn't that bad. But as I was standing there in the wind and the snow was coming down, I was freezing.
Oh, heck yeah.
And now imagine trying to do that for a whole night where there's, I'm not saying the sun was hot that day. It wasn't. But it was providing more heat than we think it does.
Oh, yeah.
And so as soon as that sun goes down, it gets really cold. It gets really windy. Yep. And to do it for a whole night, crazy.
Now, what are some other things that people can do, simple things? Because I know there's a lot of, actually I was watching a Frankly Speaking episode today. words failing me.
Speaking is hard.
Yeah, thinking is hard. There's a giving fatigue for a lot of people because a lot of people don't have much to give. But like, what are some very, very practical, inexpensive ways that people can help?
What I love about Youth for Christ is there are like a dozen ways to help. There's no one way, right?
Yeah.
So the first way is obviously monetary. I know money's tight, but if you want to donate, you can go to yfcstrathroy.com. There's a red donate button in the right corner, and then you're going to get a whole list of names. My name, Dave, Berdan, and as well as the other staff that I've talked about. We have center director. We just hired a shelter director, even though we don't have a shelter up yet, but she just started. And so you go through all the names. So if you want to donate to our ministry, that would be amazing. It's a one-time thing, or if you want to become a monthly partner, that would help me in my deputation, or if you feel to help one or the other, that would be great. There's also the general account. So if you just want to give to 37 Frank, all that money goes towards 37 Frank, and that could go to, spent however, right? Another way is to donate. So we don't have a lot of space at 37 Frank, so rather than have we have some clothes on hand, especially like coats, mitts, and hats, sleeping bags. But we also have a deal with some of the stores in town where if you go, secondhand stores, if you go to them, we call ahead and say, do you have this? They'll get it ready, and then they'll just give it to that person.
That's so cool.
We have a lot of great partnerships like that. That's one thing. A lot of people want to donate clothes and stuff. So we take some, but not a lot. We'd rather work with the other stores in town just because we don't have the room.
It'd be easier for facilitating.
And then with food and stuff, we love grocery cards because then that way we can spend the money as is. If you have like an actual kitchen, unfortunately, you can't just do something in your own kitchen and bring it in. It has to be in a kitchen safe. I forget the term, but that's just the rules as far as. Again, unfortunately, there's people who have made soup in their own home, and it's safe, but unfortunately, we can't serve it.
Ingredients is better,
right? So if you want to donate food, groceries, grocery cards is the best. So just that way we can buy the stuff we need when we need it.
Absolutely. And we'll get all the links in the video description for everything that we've talked about here. So sorry.
And then there's volunteering. So we found out that we're part of we're just one satellite of different chapters of YFC. We have over 20 volunteers, and most other chapters have like one or two.
That's insane.
And yet we're always wanting more volunteers just because of the way we work.
Yeah.
Because we're running an actual cafe, so we need people to work the cafe. And so if serving is your thing and getting to know the youth and working with youth, if that's the kind of volunteer I was at the Upper Deck, great. If you don't like to work with kids but you can cook, perfect. We'll put you behind the counter in the kitchen. We have a volunteer that all she does is admin work because I hate admin work. And so does Dave, and so does Jackson, and all the other staff hate admin work. So she actually comes in and helps us with a lot of the admin work. That's all she does. We have events that we need extra volunteers for the walk. We need people at certain corners to make sure people are,
going the right way.
Going the right way, and they're staying off the streets and staying on the sidewalks and stuff like that. So event volunteers is always big. So if you say, well, I'm not, I'm not good with teenagers or whatever, we can still find a place for you to volunteer. And so that's another huge area is to volunteer.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, wow, that is a lot of information and a lot of really, really good, ways for people to help without like having to overextend themselves, really. So,
and that's the thing. If you sign up and you say I can only do like one thing a month, then do one thing a month. We're not gonna make you do a shift a week if you can't do it. We don't want to overextend you in any way. We work to your schedule. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that is so awesome. And for everybody at home, like that's watching this, guys, get involved with these kinds of ministries, especially. And if you want to help 37 Frank out, we'll definitely make sure that there is links to be able to do that in the description below. And we'll get you some more of the links for other ministries that Aaron is working with. And yeah, honestly, it's been such a pleasure to have you here and have you come on the podcast talking about this, because it's very near and dear to me as somebody who was a homeless youth in Strathroy. So it's
good to hear that your voice and your testimony, because like I said, you've gone through it.
I could still go through it tomorrow if I lost my job. Like, my parents are out there; they can't help me anymore. They've financially exhausted themselves with trying to help me over the last 5 years. So I mean, it's a very real thing.
Oh, for sure. And so for you to go through that and be able to talk about it, I mean, that's just amazing.
Yeah, well, hey, I'll talk about it a lot. I'm always talking about it. People tell me to stop talking about it so often. You know who you are. But yeah, thank you so much for coming out, Aaron. And, well, we will definitely see you later, Pickle Posse. Have a good one.
Peace.